Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. It's a hot day at the end of a long hot day, and our energy can be kind of low, but good to be gathered together and hoping you're all able to enter into our holy celebration with full investment of your heart. And the Lord, of course, will repay that 100-fold. We have a really very illuminating gospel today. I just want to talk a little bit about, because it's so rich. It's the gospel that gives us the parable of the Good Samaritan. That title, this event that takes place here has become so ingrained in the imagination of Western civilization that hospitals and charitable works of all kinds everywhere throughout the Western world have been named the Good Samaritan. And that name is just a byword. When we say Good Samaritan, we have in our mind someone who goes out of his way to do something he really did not have to do. And so we have this today. But let's go back a little bit and see what's really going on here, because it's a great dynamic. You have this doctor of the law, scholar of the law, who wants to trip Jesus up. He wants to catch him in a snare. So he poses what he thinks is a trick question. He says, "What's the greatest of the commandments?" And Jesus, being a good rabbi in the good Hebrew tradition, answers his question with another question. What do you think is the greatest of the commandments? And so the scholar answers, he's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said, well done, very good. Now, someone needed to tell him the maxim, quit when you're winning, while you're still ahead. But he went on, and he asked him another question. Okay, who's my neighbor? And that's when it got tricky. That's when Jesus, again, comes forth with this magnificent parable where he shows that here's this man. I'm going to go through a couple of the main figures. First of all, he says, a man came down from Jerusalem. He doesn't name him. We don't know who this man was. Was he old? Was he young? Was he rich? Was he poor? Was he powerful? Was he just an average person? Was he a leader among the people? Or what was he? We don't know. And I don't think that's an omission. I think Jesus wants you and I to see ourselves in that position of being helpless, of suffering, of experiencing some kind of overwhelming suffering. We are just unable to take care of ourselves. And we are in need. We're in need of the help and charity of others. And so this is the scene that comes in. We have this man who's been jumped as he's coming down from Jerusalem to go to Jericho. And he's lying there just beat up and been burgled and just, left there to die. And so we have these people that come by and just, give him wide berth and walk around him. There's lots of reasons why. I'm not going to go into all that. You've probably all heard all that before. Why the priest and why the Levite didn't stop. But then Jesus does something pretty extraordinary, and he tells them then, here comes this Samaritan. Now I can just see the doctor of the law and the people behind him, all of his colleagues behind him, just the hair in their necks standing up as soon as he said the Samaritan. They hated the Samaritans because the Samaritans were heretics. The Samaritans had broken off from Israel and had started basically their own religion. It was a syncretism of the law of Moses and any other religion they could patch together. And so the Jews hated the Samaritans. They looked down upon them. As far as they were concerned, they were jihadist terrorists. And so it turns out that this is the person who stops and takes care of the man who's in desperate. Not only just takes care of him, he takes him to an inn, which is the fathers say that's the image of the church. So they take him to an inn, after pouring oil and wine on him, and he takes him to an inn and leaves him there to be cared for, the church. And then he said, I'll come back, and if there's more, I'll do that. And it's just wonderful this wonderful example that really had to startle his listeners. You and I, we've heard this so many times, it doesn't have the impact. But it's a very, very shocking example that Jesus uses. Like I said, it would be like holding up for us, the model citizen is a jihadist with an automatic rifle. Anyway, you get the idea. So, what is the meaning of that for us? How does that relate to us? We live in such a hyper-divided and conflicted culture that I believe that God is telling us today that we need to look with different eyes upon the people that we are ready to prejudge. All of us, well, I don't know about all of you, but I know I include myself, fall easily into the trap of judging, even in some ways condemning those people who hold views that I consider to be immoral or different than mine. That's in the political realm. How about also the even religiously, those who have contempt for the church, or even within the church, those who have a viewpoint that I believe is really not in accord with the gospel. But again, we all have different views on things, and so if we're all going to look down on each other and condemn each other because of our differences, then we're in a continual state of conflict. Rather than not dismissing it, not I'm okay, you're okay, but be willing to listen to one another. Be willing to find out what's good in what the other person is saying. Be listening for where someone is coming from, what's important to them. I was reading recently about the transformation that a former pro-abortion woman had. She said that whenever she would go to these rallies and she would see people holding up signs that said, "Abortion is murder," she would dig in her heels and to be determined to hold on to her position even more so. But then eventually she found some people who began to talk to her about choosing life and the importance, the beauty of choosing life. It's the same thing in some ways, but it's said with charity. It's said and from a different point of view. And that was a turning point for her and her conversion. And so being able to hear that, to be sensitive to those viewpoints. We don't have to agree with them. We don't have to say they're right, but not to find ourselves in a position where we have a deep-seated animus. I often talk to people in the confessional who can't believe how angry they are because of all the cable news they watch and all this stuff that's got them all ginned up, and it doesn't do any good. They can't change any of those things that they're angry about. We don't have control over that. We barely have control over our own passions, much less what's going on in the rest of the world. And so this is an opportunity for us to look and say, okay, Lord, how can I be more attentive to the differences that people that I know and care for have, and not be tolerant in the sense of anything goes. No, because there is truth and there is falsehood, and we need to be on the side of truth. But we're dealing with persons here, and to be able to grant to people a fair hearing. Sometimes we'll be surprised. I remember years ago when I was following closely the apparitions of our Blessed Mother in Medjugorje. One of the visionaries was asked by someone from the town, I believe it was from some town, it might have been a visitor, who asked, "Would you please ask our Blessed Mother who is the holiest person in our town in Medjugorje?" And so the visionary did it, and then she came back and told the person who asked, and said, "Our Blessed Mother says that so-and-so is the holiest person," a woman who happened to be a Muslim woman. When I heard that, I kind of bristled at it. I go, "Oh, are you kidding me? A whole town of Catholics and the Muslim." Well, you just never know. You never know what's really going on in the hearts of people. So I believe that our Lord is asking us to just have that ability, that capacity to see beyond our own restricted categories without giving up what is true and non-negotiable. There's another aspect of this story that I think is very important for us, that the Lord wants to teach us about suffering. Why is it that suffering comes to us? Why is it that young people get sick or die? Why is it that women who are so desperate to have children can't get pregnant? Why is it that your loved ones are suffering because of one reason or another? Why is it that you're experiencing these economic difficulties when you've done everything right? On and on. You know, the list is very long. We all have our own list about it. Why does God allow suffering? I think that there are two scriptural models for that. The first one is Job. Job. The devil challenged God to say, Job just loves you because you've given him everything. He has a wife, he has kids, money, lots of sheep, goats, camels, everything, big house. You take that away from him and he'll turn from you. And God said, okay, do anything you want, just don't take his life. And so Job underwent, as you know, terrible, terrible suffering. He lost everything. And throughout that whole time, he kept reminding himself that our God can see everything. He knows everything. He created everything. None of this got by him. And so that suffering had as its purpose to strengthen Job's faith in God and trust in God, knowing that in that suffering, not only was God there, but allowed Job to participate, now not Job so much, but you and I, to participate in the cross of Jesus Christ. That when we suffer and we unite it with the cross, we complete what is lacking in the cross of Jesus, as St. Paul says. So suffering has that as its first goal, it allows us to be agents of grace for other people by allowing our suffering to be united to the suffering of Jesus. Secondly, suffering creates good Samaritans out of all of us. If no one you knew needed any help, there would be no way that we could grow in charity. But because everybody you know needs help, we have opportunities to become charitable, to become good Samaritans. So the Lord allows suffering so that you and I can see the need, respond to it, and become that extraordinary, unexpected agent of mercy and grace. May the Lord bless all of us. May we become good Samaritans.